Kristi Moore. A 12-year-old girl is walking down the street when she is approached by a man who stops her and proceeds to tell her that now that Trump is president, I'm going to shoot you and as many black people as I can find. How would you feel if this happened to you? Even how would you feel if you just witnessed this in the street? We are all consumers of social media in this room. Because of this, we are all exposed to hate speech on a daily basis, whether from the accounts we follow or other public accounts that we may encounter. Hate speech should not be tolerated. First, I will tell you about the effects hate speech has on society. Then I will tell you about the effects hate speech has on a person. And finally, I will tell you about a hate speech epidemic in history. Hate speech is extremely prevalent in our modern world. This can be seen in the streets, in the news, or on the internet. Andrew Stellers, the director of technology and cyber law at Harvard University for 4 years, in the paper titled Defining Hate Speech, published in 2016, states that hate speech is any speech that attacks, threatens, or insults a person or group on the basis of national origin, ethnicity, race, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, or disability. Victor Sorrell, who has a PhD in psychology and is a member of Warsaw University's Research on Prejudice for 3 years, in the article titled Exposure to Hate Speech Increases Prejudice, published in 2017, states that when people are constantly exposed to hate speech against a certain group, they are more likely to develop a prejudice against that group and often believe the hateful things being said about them. This leads to an increase in mass prejudice, which can cause mass hysteria. Desensitization of a person through exposure can maybe influence them to use hate speech against that group in the future and possibly even commit hate crimes. People are targeted and murdered every day on the account of something as minute as skin color, just to give an example. Ray Langton, an Australian-British professor of philosophy for 10 years, in the book Oxford Studies in Philosophy of Law, Volume 3, published in 2018, states that in 2016, in the US only, 7,615 people were killed due to hate crimes. The largest percentage of these hate crimes were due to a racial prejudice. The second highest was 21% were fueled by a religious prejudice. To put this in perspective, 1,833 people died during Hurricane Katrina, which is one of the most widely known hurricane disasters in modern history. This is about the same number as the people who died just from religious-related hate crimes only. Hate speech can have dire consequences on a person's self-esteem. Naomi Eisler, who has a PhD in cancer research from the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, in the article titled More Than Hurt Feelings, The Real Dangers of Hate Speech, states that when people are constantly exposed to personal accounts of hate speech, they are more likely to attach ashamed and anxious feelings towards that trait, and they may be even driven to self-harming behaviors and possibly even attempt suicide. They also can be driven to attempt to change how they look or how they act by, an example of this is bleaching your dark skin or chemically straightening your hair or just simply pretending to be someone you are not. Even when no physical crime occurs, there are still many psychological effects on a person. We have learned about World War II for many years in our history classes. Perhaps one of the most startling parts about learning about World War II was the barbaric crimes against humanity committed by the Nazis. Nazi propaganda was designed to breed hysteria through the German people so that they would be blindly followed, so that the Nazis would be blindly followed. This led to an increase in prejudice and hysteria against targeted groups of people, so that when those groups were taken away and the German people weren't sure what was happening to them, they didn't question it, and they just followed the Nazis blindly. This resulted in mass genocide and a later recollection of the horrors that occurred. First, I told you about the effects hate speech has on society. Then I told you about the effects hate speech has on a person. And finally, I told you about a hate speech epidemic in history. Hate speech should not be tolerated. Hate speech breeds prejudice, and without prejudice, that young girl may have been greeted by a smile from the man on the street.